Hello, figments of my imagination. With March behind us, we wave goodbye to the Diablo beta, and hello to a sparkly new Ashes stream. And this is probably the best one in a while, so let's get right to it. Starting out strong, the stream opened with a fan question about the timetable of Alpha 2, and it wasn't completely dodged for once. Steven mentioned that while Alpha 2 isn't years away, it's not right around the corner either. He also mentioned internal and spot testing starting at the end of the year and beginning of next year. With all that information, the probable timetable for Alpha 2 probably falls in spring 2024. And while I think that's clearly the conclusion that Steven was trying to get us to draw, the optimistic side of me still hopes that his timetable is meant more to dampen our hype for a surprise release. Possibly at the end of 2023, but my guess is January 2024. It's long enough to allow some testing and dodge the hectic holiday season, but short enough to surprise people expecting a spring or summer release. Moving on to more concrete info, we had the Tower of Carfin preview. The real surprise here was the reveal of story arcs, the team's solution to questing in an evolving world. Basically, there are multiple possible quest lines that have different triggers, such as what nodes are unlocked and what previous stories were completed. Story arcs also affect the environment, dramatically changing the appearance and enemies present, along with what resources are gatherable. They also mentioned that questing itself is a little different. Instead of typical quest chains, multiple tasks with different rewards are presented, and the player can pick and choose what to pursue. Steven also said some of these are exclusive, so player choice will matter. A key point Steven stressed was that they didn't want gameplay to become a chore, so they didn't want progression to center around strict dailies. Similarly, story arcs last for a while, so if you can't log in for a day or two, you still have a chance to do them. Finally, to help alleviate some FOMO fear, the devs clarified that most story arcs repeat, so if you miss one for whatever reason, it will eventually happen again. They also mentioned that any that are non-repeatable, such as big arcs that change the world, will have some other way to experience them again. As for Carfin itself, the demo didn't really show dungeon gameplay. The whole thing honestly seemed a little like a bait and switch. They announced Carfin for this stream, but instead of the typical dungeon gameplay everyone was expecting, we got the information about story arcs. Honestly, it's a pretty clever move, and I don't fault them for it. Also, the Hoarder is horrifying. And to summarize the rest of the stream, world bosses will have a spawn window or story arc trigger rather than a set time. Steven hates steampunk. The mage will be the focus of next month's stream, and the Cyclops raid should be the focus for May, as predicted earlier. And that's it. Not gonna lie, the news about Alpha 2 is pretty disheartening. Maybe fall 2023 was a little too optimistic, but a man can dream, right? Diablo 4 was way more fun than I expected, so that's something nice to look forward to, along with Breath of the Wild 2 next month. Add in Starfield in September, and at least there are plenty of good titles to attempt to fill the Ashes-size hole in my heart. Anyways, let me know what your predictions for Alpha 2 are below, do any of those other YouTube things you like, and I'll see you all eventually.
Oh my god, this is like the supreme edgelord environment.